As a second-generation outfitter, passing down the outdoor tradition is in my blood. When I'm not guiding, spending time with the outdoors with my wife Lacey and our 3 kids is my greatest passion. Utah is home to just about every big game species. The incredible diversity and excellent wildlife populations make it a true hunter's paradise. The number and quality of trophy animals we hunt is unmatched in the lower 48. Using my lifetime of knowledge to help others experience the epic hunting Utah can deliver is what I live for. I'm Billy Robb, and I'm an outfitter.
I'm in southern Utah right now, and I'm driving a brand new 2017 Ford Raptor. I'm gonna be testing it out in some of the toughest country I know, and that's in Utah. I'm hunting with my buddy Billy Robb from Red Creek Outfitters. I'm going after one of the monster mule deer that Billy has in his area. I've seen some of the ones that his clients have taken, and I'm hoping to take one with my bow.
We're like 4 generations right here in this little bitty town of 250 people of Paragouna and the mountains that are around here. I hunt with everything within 150 miles of this area, but I've done it my whole life. I grew up doing this. My dad started our business in 1964, and that's all I've ever done. My dad was a huge houndsman, and he was a buck hunter, you know, big mule deer, and that was kind of the 2 things that they did. Back in the day, there was a handful of outfitters, maybe in each state. And it was it's a small thing, and nowadays it's so commercialized. It's still good, but you just crowded. But what I like about our business is I've never really grown it to the point where it's not personalized. I'm big, and my dad was always big on being real small and quality. You know, quality is what makes a business run, and we stick with that. It's our #1 motto. In scouting this summer for this hunt, I actually found one giant non-typical that I really want to be my A-list buck, and I found a lot of nice, just quality 170 type bucks. But this non-typical I'm talking about, I mean, it is a world-class deer. It's over 200 inches. It's got a great main frame, a couple of inlines, a couple of stickers. It's the kind of buck you don't see every day, and I hope I can talk Fred. I know Fred's a meat hunter, but I want to talk Fred into trying to put some time in to kill this deer because it's a once-in-a-lifetime deer.
Billy is glassing me from about 1.5 miles away. And he's gonna try and let me know if there's a buck way over to the right or off to the left that I can slip up on.
I'm waiting patiently. I haven't seen a deer yet, and all of a sudden I get a call from Billy.
Yeah, I got you, buddy. Go ahead.
Seen several deer now go down and draw right there. You should be able to spot those deer, and then from there you could make a move, either go around and get in front of them or something.
Roger that. I'm just gonna take the radio and my bow. I'm gonna head up right now.
As I break over the top, I'm kind of sneaking through, and that's when a coyote starts chasing deer around. He's just howling and carrying on, the deer taking off. It is just a cluster up on that top of that mesa.
Not helping the deer situation any. Seriously, can't you run them?
Then I get a call from Billy saying, Fred, that giant buck, he's hooking around to your left and going down the cliff. You've got to get back to the cliff. They were a little far for me to make anything happen with, but it was awesome just seeing that giant buck in there. He was traveling with some smaller bucks, but he stood out. Just obviously night and day difference. When you're looking at a huge mature Utah buck, he stands out. Thanks for coming to get me.
You bet.
Came close.
We'll keep after them.
They're here.
We'll keep after them. I think we ought to leave that buck alone for this evening. Okay. Just not pressure him too much. I don't want to push him out of that area. I think that's a good spot. I think we can get on him later. So I've got a bunch of other bucks on this other mountain spotted. Okay. Let's go see if we can do an afternoon hunt and do a stalk hunt or something like that.
Sounds great. I'm in.
All right.
I am literally hemmed in. One of these deer is gonna spot me, and when it blows, the buck's gonna go.
The Outfitters is brought to you by America's best-selling truck for 40 straight years, Ford F-Series, built Ford tough.
So this afternoon, I think we're going to go to a different area. You know, we've actually seen this big dog typical now, but I don't want to overpressure him. This morning there was coyotes, their wind was swirling, there was just too much in there. I think we need to leave that alone this afternoon. I'm going to take him up to a different glassing area and give him kind of an overview of the whole area and see if we can spot another buck to do something with. That's actually on that bench right over there is where we actually been after that really big buck.
Okay. Yep.
You see it now?
Yeah. I see the cut, but it breaks off.
Yeah, big difference. Sitting back and looking at it from here is when you're on the ground there, right?
Yeah. It kind of looks steep from here too, though, but it's really steep when you're on it going up.
Right.
Well, Billy explained that he had watched this big buck bed down in this little draw. We get around and he's like, okay, we're gonna try and slip up and spot him before he spots us. So we take off on another one of Billy's short hikes, which is a little longer than you always think it's gonna be. And sure enough, we end up spotting this buck bedded down in this little draw.
Damn, this wind is bad.
Problem is, there's another smaller buck that's with the big buck that I really want to try and take. Well, because of the situation, we decide the only way to even make a go at this deer is for one person to go in.
So Fred's going down the hill, starting to stalk. He's working his way down. I look through my binos. The buck gets up, start feeding. So I whistle at Fred quietly, try to give him a noise, and he looks at me, and so I'm giving him hand signals.
Now I'm like, either he wants to play Pac-Man or this means the deer's eating. So that's what I figured, that this means the deer's eating and he's giving me a direction. So I turn and start walking that way. And I glass back up at Billy for confirmation I'm doing right. And he goes like this, which means go faster. As I'm going around, I look up and I just see the tips of this huge buck's rack right above the brush. So I drop down to all fours and I start crawling. The buck's feeding, but there's a little buck that's right next to him that's also feeding. And every once in a while he throws his head up. So when either of the bucks have their head up, I have to freeze and lie motionless and rely on my camouflage to help blend me in with the background. I change positions, I knock an arrow, the deer's in a perfect position, slightly quartering away. It has no idea I'm there.
There's a reason why you'll find the all-new 2017 Ford Super Duty on King Ranch. They need its powerful towing, hauling, and payload capability every day. A stiffer frame and stronger suspension and axles give it a strength it takes to do the really big jobs. It's also got plenty of great features like up to 6 available cameras that give you a 360-degree view. Plus an available camera you can put on the back of a trailer, which comes in really handy when you have to work with and around thousands of head of cattle every day. And to make everything really convenient, all the video feeds into one screen. I guess you can see why King Ranch likes the all-new 2017 Ford Super Duty. The toughest, smartest, most capable Super Duty ever. This is the next level, and this is why Ford says we own work.
The buck jumps totally out of the way, and the arrow goes right where the buck was and thumps into a stump that was right in front of his chest. You just can't plan on that.
I had it through the binos, great shot. Buck jumped his string. Any slight noise that's out of normal, you know, is gonna spook him, and I'm sure he's been shot at. I'm sure he knows the sound of a bow going off. Them savvy 6, 7-year-old public land bucks, you know, they know the game for sure.
I may need a hand. This,
Yeah, that one might be solid in that still.
we'll give it the old 1, 2, 3, huh? You got it? 1, 2. Oh, holy cow, we're gonna pull the whole stump off. You know, public land hunting's tough because you're dealing with everybody, right? Everybody's out trying to find a buck. So when you hire an outfitter, especially an outfitter that's running hunts on public land, they really have to know their stuff. They have to know the area. They have to know where to go to get you away from the pressured public land hunters. But Billy assured me when I said, man, there's campers all over. He said, Fred, you know what? Once you get off the road and start getting into the really rough country, he said, you're not gonna see very many people. And I know where the deer are, and they're not where the people are.
So this morning we're gonna start early. We're gonna go an extra hour early. We're gonna do about an hour, hour and a half hike in the dark with the headlamps, go all the way up a ridge and see if we can get in front of this buck.
I wanna go back after the monster buck. It was that close. All right, maybe that close, but it was really close. I go back into the same area. Billy said, Fred, I'll watch from the other side. You get in there and let's see what we could do. I crawl back again, up the cliff. I top out. Now, I look up with my binoculars.
Man, it's a genuine Utah giant.
Just like he's teasing me. He's there, but he's not there. He's close, but he's not close enough. He's across this canyon. I can see him, but I can't really get to him. Something has to change.
You gotta be kidding me. We got a doe coming right at us. And if she comes right up, she's gonna blow this gig.
So this doe just starts coming right to me like on a string. And I'm like, no, 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 go away. I don't want you to come over here. I'm trying to get one of these huge bucks. And this doe out of this whole mesa top just gravitates and feeds right to me. And it's horrible. It's the worst situation I could have. So it's literally a waiting game. I keep looking, waiting for these bucks to come up over the ravine. I keep looking back over here, watching the doe. And unfortunately, the doe's beating the bucks. 10 yards, 15 yards.
She doesn't see me, but she's getting my wind. My tag's not good for a doe, or I would have been happy to eat her.
She freaks out, she starts jumping and running, and I know it's over. She takes off, and so does every other deer on that mesa. You know, I've seen some absolutely amazing bucks, but I want this one. This big, non-typical Utah giant. That's my buck. I've got it in my mind that it's this buck or it's no buck. What do you think about me borrowing a sleeping bag and just crashing on the mountain?
And I think that's a good idea, honestly.
Yeah, I don't want to stay right where he's at, but I'll back off a little bit. I just think it puts me right up there closer, and I might be able to make a move and get on it.
Yeah, you don't want to bump him out of there, but that's going to save us a lot for sure. You know, as far as hiking up the mountain, you know, you can get more sleep, and it's going to put you in position in the right time for sure.
Well, if you're fine with it, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, well, we can get some bags and set you up. I can see trophy hunter coming out in Fred. I never thought I'd see this, but he's getting obsessed with this buck. This is a buck of a lifetime. You don't see a buck like this every day. I think we're getting obsessed with him, but for good reason.
I want to shoot him. I want to eat him. I want to put his head right on my wall. This is a buck I want so bad. This is so out of character. I really want to try and see if I can outsmart this deer. Ford F-Series has been America's go-to truck for 40 years. Now's your chance to join one of the great hunting or fishing outfitters you see here and win a new F-Series truck. Just visit thefordoutfitters.com and enter the Ford Go-To Sweepstakes.
So Fred spent the night on the mountain. You know, he's getting obsessed with this buck. He thinks that's his best option. He's going to get up an hour before daylight, work his way real slow in a position he already determined. I'm going to be back in my same glassing position, and maybe if I can spot it before Fred sees it, then I can radio to him and see if we can work a plan and see if he can get closer to this deer.
The sun starts to come up, and at first I'm like, man, I don't see a deer in sight. This is the first time I've been in this area and not seen a deer. And then all of a sudden, boom.
There's a deer right there, coming into our valley. Oh, it's a buck.
Of course, my heart starts racing. Is it him? Is it the buck? But it's not. It's a smaller 2x2 that comes up over the ridge, and normally this would be a great buck. I would be tickled pink with this deer. But he comes over, cuts over to our left, and walks past. I'm ignoring this deer almost instantly, scanning the ridgeline for this giant buck. I love to eat wild game. That's what I eat. That's why I'm a hunter. The number of times that I've ever passed up any legal animal is probably zero.
There's that great big buck walking across the draw from Fred. I know he's not in range. He's kind of side-hilling. But he might stop and feed and drop into Fred, I don't know. Too far across that draw from Fred right now.
Oh, that's our buck.
Billy's watching the buck, and as he goes over the ridge for me, I lose him. But Billy hits me on the radio and says, Fred, you're not gonna believe this, but he's going to bed in the exact same spot. So now, it went from maybe it's over to maybe I can get back in that same spot and get him coming back up.
So this morning hunt, we seen the big buck, didn't come within shooting range, but that buck fed down and went in the same bedding position. So it's all boiled down to this last evening's hunt.
I'm excited. I back up way into the cedars. I want to make sure there's no chance if this buck comes out that he's going to spot me. I also want to make sure a doe isn't going to mess it up. Another buck, I want to be as hidden as I can be. I'm sitting there for hours waiting. Usually, sometimes I'll sit relaxed. This night, I've got my arrow on the bow and I do not take my hand off it the whole time.
So Fred's sitting up there with an hour left of shooting light on his last day of this hunt, just passes a 4x4, and he's second guessing himself big time whether he should have done this, all for this one giant non-typical.
Hey, Billy, if you got a copy, I may have messed up. I just passed up a 4x4. I had him at 20 yards, but it wasn't the big one.
All's rolling through my mind thinking, man, we worked hard on this buck, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Passing these bucks up is killing me, dude. got a copy?
Go ahead, Fred.
I had him at 30 yards. I passed up that 4x4 I told you about that was with him this morning. I could have shot him. And then I looked up, and here came that big one. I had him at 30 yards, Billy, but he was behind a tree. And then he took off, and the next time we stopped, he was like 120. I'm gonna sit up here until dark, but that just broke my heart, man.
That sucks, buddy. Man, I feel for you. That's too bad.
Too bad, that's all you have to say. That's not good enough to me.
You know, a lot of people can sit back and look at this week's hunt with Fred Eichler as being a non-successful hunt because we didn't kill the buck that we were after. That's not anything how I look at it. We had a great week. We worked our butts off day in, day out. Fred spent the night on the mountain after this buck. We didn't get the kill shot, but we had a great week.
Is it okay I'm going home without? Yes, I guess so, because I hunted hard. Will I ever do it again? Pass up a buck to try and shoot a monster? Probably not, because I love to eat deer meat. But I'll tell you what, for this hunt, after seeing that incredible buck, there was no way I could head back to Colorado with anything but him.